What is up, Bears fans? Welcome to the Bears Huddle podcast, your UK take on all things Chicago Bears. Guys, it's not far to go now. The NFL draft is nearly upon us. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the Bears will pick 25th in the first round, along with 60th, 61st, and a whole host of other picks to bring in some hopefully new, exciting Bears to add to this roster, to bring some quality, to bring some talent, to really develop this and turn this roster into a team that goes maybe a stage or two further in next year's NFL playoffs. Now, look, on the earlier video we put out, we talked a little bit about the defensive line. We talked a little bit about edge rushers. We talked about safeties. We talked about the defensive side of the ball. And I think, look, a lot of the talk is the defensive side of the ball is where the Bears are going to prioritize in this draft. However, there is as we say in the UK, a crowning turd in the water pipe, a bit of a hitch upcoming. That is that Ozzy Trapillo is injured. Ozzy Trapillo is missing, and realistically, he's probably going to miss the whole of next season. I think, even if he does come back towards the end of the season, you've got to kind of question where he'll be in terms of fitness, where he'll be in terms of confidence in that injury, and where he'll be in terms of getting back to the level he was at last year. Trapillo is a massive miss, don't get me wrong. And obviously, the Bears' offensive line last year was absolutely superb with Trapillo, Tooney, Drew Dahlman, now retired, unfortunately, Jonah Jackson, and Darnell Wright. There's a lot of change on that line. Again, Garrett Bradbury will play centre. We'll have a new left tackle, of course. The right side will stay fairly consistent, of course. Now, had this been a short-term injury situation where, when we look at the Ozzy Trapillo, Pat's missing 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, you may be therefore do something around, playing Tooney as the left tackle and kind of bringing in a kind of make stop at left guard, and you kind of go through that. But this is a whole season job. Now, the Bears do have left tackles on their roster going into OTAs, mini camp, etc., and training camp. Braxton Jones, surprisingly, back in Chicago. I've got to say, I am pretty much surprised this guy was back. Obviously, benched last year. Genuinely do not rate Braxton Jones. Think, he's had his fitness issues, and if he's fully fit, maybe we get a different Braxton. But for me, Braxton Jones is not a great tackle, and you need a top tackle, a left tackle, to protect your quarterback's blind side, particularly with how Caleb plays. Theo Benedette came in and came from nowhere, really, a former UDFA, came in, played some games, pass blocking, pretty decent, run blocking, not so great. And then, when the Bears had that injury issue with Trapillo, they didn't play Jones or Benedette. They went to Tooney in that playoff game. So, maybe there's a lack of trust there in those two left tackles who were on the roster last season. Maybe that's an indication of where we're looking, and certainly what comments Dan Roush has made, which we'll get to shortly, kind of back that up. Now, obviously, the wild card that has been brought in is Jedrick Wills, a guy from the Cleveland Browns. Now, Jedrick Wills obviously was at one time a first-round pick for the Browns. Now, we all know that Cleveland is, it's not a great place to play. We all know that Cleveland is a place where good players go to die, where good players go to absolutely fall apart and become terrible players. That is just who it is. This is Jedrick Wills' last opportunity, I think, to really prove himself. He's on a prove-it deal. He's 6'4", 307 pounds. Like I said, he was a first-round pick out of Alabama. He was 10th overall in the 2020 draft. So clearly this guy is no mug. Played 58 games for the Browns, started 57 of them, but obviously injury has been a massive, massive thing for him. And he sat out most of last year out due to that injury, suffering an MCL injury. So, this is a guy who you're taking a big risk on, but maybe the hope is that, with the work that these two guys do, Dan Rauscher and Kevin Devan, the offensive line coaches, who are exceptionally highly rated and exceptionally highly talked about by the Bears coaching staff, can really work wonders with those three guys, and maybe even turn Jedrick Wills back into that what he was, which was that first round pick back in 2020. And, at least for next year, answer the left tackle question until Ozzy gets back with Jedrick Wills. I mean, that is my hope. I don't, look, I'll be absolutely honest with you, do not rate Braxton Jones. Don't think he's the man. Benedette's a good backup. That's all he is. We need a solid left tackle. Now, Dan Rauscher did say that he didn't feel that in the building they had anyone who could play left tackle the way they wanted them to play left tackle when he was talking about this left tackle issue. And it was down to him and his staff to make one. That's obviously if, we don't go and get one in the draft, which we'll talk about in a moment. So, big pressure on Dan Rauscher and Kevin Devane to get this job done, to find this left tackle and bring this left tackle through. If it's going to be Braxton, if it's going to be Theo Bernadette, or, like I said, the big sort of wild card, the big hope maybe is that Jedrick Wills could prove himself. Kieran Amagaji also is around too, so he's a possibility, although he again has had a massively injury affected time with our Chicago Bears. Now, look, one of the question points has been that if one of the top left tackles are available at 25, do the Bears jump? Do the Bears go? Do they kind of look at it and go, well, Trapillo's coming back from an injury. He's a guy who can play right tackle as well. He did a lot of that at Boston College. He could be a swing tackle. He could be a guy who's our main swing tackle going forward. Or if, we can't agree in terms of Darnell Wright, he goes to the right-hand side. If someone is available. Now, look, you look at the draft prospects, you look at the top left tackles in this NFL draft, and you've really got to be looking at these top guys. Once you start getting beyond these top guys, you are not getting plug and play stars. You are not getting guys who can going to come in from game one, from week one, and be the stars. Ian Atchor, Miller, Caleb Tiernan, Drew Shelton, Austin Barber, decent guys, could get there. More second round guys. There's a lot of these guys going to go. Ian Atchor, I suppose, and Miller are guys who could actually be it. There's a lot of talk of as many as 6 to 7 tackles going in the first round of the draft this year. That is the conversation that is doing the rounds at this moment in time, because of the quality there is there in that position. Now, Francis Mogoa, he is a right tackle, so probably, not one the Bears will be looking at. Spencer Fano, I think, will be gone before 25. Again, he's one of the most gifted athletes, one of the most gifted tackles in this draft. He is a left tackle. He will go early. Caden Proctor, very talented left tackle. Monroe Freeling, very talented left tackle. Caleb Lomu, very talented left tackle. Now, there's a lot of talk that if Caden Proctor, that is the big one. This guy is seen as being generational. This guy is seen as being a future superstar at this left tackle position. If Caden Proctor is available at 25, would the Bears risk it? Would the Bears jump and take a left tackle despite their need on the defensive line? It may be felt that, given what Caden Proctor brings, and a lot of people may say, well, oh no, Caden Proctor will be gone before then. He's not going to be there. There's a lot of mock drafts you do where, I'll be honest with you, Caden Proctor is still there at 25. He's a quality player. Really, really good tackle. He is 6'7", 352 pounds. Out of Des Moines, went out of Alabama, so come out of an outstanding program. 88.2 player rating on DraftBuzz. Third ranked in this position group, of course, behind two very good tackles. Ran a 5.21 40, which is not overly important for a tackle. Hands 9 3/4 inches. He has a 32.5 vertical. He ran a 7.78 40. 3-cone drill. He's got 33 3/8 inch arms. Shuttle wise, 4.78. 109 inch broad jump, 25 bench. Has got an 80.38 inch span as well. In terms of his blocking, his pass blocking is rated at 90%. His run blocking at 87%. So he's coming out exceptionally high out of college. And it's felt that, someone like a Caden Proctor working with a Dan Rauscher and a Kevin Devane will go on to be outstanding. Really, really outstanding. What is Caden Proctor? Well, he has got an incredible athletic profile for a guy so big at 352, 6'7", 32.5 inch vertical with 109 inch broad jump at 352 pounds are historic numbers for a tackle. Anchor is his best trait on tape. Once he sinks and plants, bull rushers will go nowhere with him. Generates strong initial punch, can knock defenders off their rush plan before the rep develops. Gap power, run blocking is where he shines. Fires downhill, displaces defenders off the ball consistently. Walls off edge defenders effectively when he cannot get push, using positioning and mass to seal the lane. So, good adaptation to meet whatever is brought his way. Moves well enough in space to reach linebackers, get out in front when pulling. Plays with a finisher mentality. The tape shows a player who wants to bury defenders through the whistle. 3 years as a starting left tackle in the SEC with a 0 pressure game against Georgia, his best showing. This is a top tackle. This is a guy who is generational, I believe, and could go on to be an absolute talent. But if he's there, do the Bears jump? Do they risk, or do they see the D-line and the edge as bigger risks? Now, I think the situation you've got is, maybe the D-line, you've got a little of a lack of talent there beyond the top guys. Edge rushers, you still could be picking up some pretty decent edge rushers in the second round. Same with the safety position. So, there is a real kind of dilemma there for Ryan Poles, Ben Johnson, Dan Rauscher, Dennis Allen, and et al. When they go into that draft. And if they're sitting there, and at 25, Caden Proctor is still on the board, do they jump? Do they take him? Do they say, well, yeah, Ozzy is good, but this guy is going to be even better. This guy is going to be one of the top left tackles in the NFL. And do we jump? And that's the big question. That is the big question. Guys, let me know your thoughts. Do you think if Caden Proctor is still there at 25, do you risk it? Do you jump for Caden Proctor? Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Right, obviously, guys, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. And remember to bear down.